When police suspect a man may be responsible for his girlfriend's murder 8 years prior, they decide to go undercover and capture secret recordings to see if they can find the truth.
Oh, no, you can't take my... Listen to me now, right? Mate, it was just like... My missus had my son taken off of us.
Right.
For social services.
Yeah.
So I did the wrong thing, really, but I'm admitting to it now.
Mother of 4, Claire Holland had a tough childhood. She spent time moving between her parents' homes before eventually ending up in a halfway house, in other words, a care home, at the age of just 16 years old. Although it isn't clear why she ended up in a halfway house, we do know that she developed a serious alcohol problem while there. This problem would lead to much bigger issues later in life. Throughout her 20s, the drinking continued. She met like-minded men. The relationships were violent, fueled by alcohol. But Claire decided to settle down with some of these violent partners and had even decided, as you know, to have children with them. The domestic situations were that bad, social services were heavily involved in Claire's life, and it's confirmed that at least 2 of her 4 children were taken into foster care at some point, as home life was deemed not suitable for a child. By 2012, Claire, now in her early 30s, decided it was finally time to give up the drink. She wanted to do it for her children. She wanted them back in her care. Claire started to attend a program to get her off the alcohol. According to care workers, although she drank on occasion, she was making significant progress. She was also in the process of moving to a new flat. This was the new chapter in her life that she was looking for. But there was something, or rather someone, from the old chapter that would make his way into the new one. Darren Osment, the father of Claire's youngest child. Darren and Claire met each other while working at a cafe in 2008. The two instantly hit it off, but Darren was just like the previous men in Claire's life, a violent drunk. She stuck around though. After all, we can't help who we love, and in 2010, the two had a baby together. Both Darren and Claire drunk throughout the pregnancy. The child was removed from the home and put into foster care just weeks after he was born. I remember Claire saying that she and Darren had an argument, but I don't remember exactly what it had been about. She said they had both been drinking and Darren had hit her. In her presentation, she was very shaky and she said she was very scared of him. In response, my question was, how scared are you? And she said she wouldn't put it past him to try and kill her. And she also said on a separate occasion he had tried to strangle her. The advice that I gave her was that we could find her a place in a woman's refuge. That she should take the place in a woman's refuge because it's a place of safety. Claire was very reluctant to go to a refuge, and so she opted to go and stay with a friend instead. Shortly after that meeting with social services, the child was removed from Claire's care. So it's 2 years later. 2012. By this point, Darren and Claire had split up, although they kept in touch, and a foster family have custody of their child. As you know though, Claire wanted to finally put an end to that, so she was making huge changes in her life. But ladies and gentlemen, something horrific was about to happen, and all this took place just as things were looking up for Claire. This incident would remain a mystery for nearly a decade. On June 7th, 2012, Claire Holland was due to meet her mother at a contact centre in Bristol City Centre in the United Kingdom to visit her son, the one she shared with Darren. Although Jacqueline, Claire's mum, arrived, she never did. I was waiting, she just didn't turn up. Even the social worker said that's not like Claire. It was out of character. Claire didn't answer any follow-up phone calls and missed 2 further contact meetings, prompting her sister Sarah to report her missing to the police. At first, I thought she's got a bit of money in the bank from a grant to kit out her flat. Has she had a little party and slipped a bit, got drunk, and was too embarrassed to get in touch with anyone as she was doing so well? That's what I thought at the time. So, a missing persons investigation was opened into the disappearance of Claire Holland. Where was she? Well, there were a few lines of inquiry for police to follow. One of those had been reports that Claire had been drinking at a pub in Bristol City Centre on the 6th of June 2012, the day before she was due to meet her son at the contact centre. When police confirmed that she was indeed in Bristol City Centre on the 6th, they gathered as much CCTV footage as they could from that day to try and trace her movements. The first sighting of her takes place at around 12 minutes past 3 in the afternoon. She withdraws £50 from a cash machine at the Asda supermarket in the Bedminster area of the city. 20 minutes later, Claire arrives at the Seamus O'Donnell pub on St Nicholas Street. Over the next 3 hours or so, she knocks back a few drinks while occasionally leaving the pub to run some errands. For example, at 4 PM, she travels across the road to the Best One shop to top her phone up. At 4:16 PM, Claire Holland makes a call to Darren Osment. Details about the conversation are unknown, but we do know that she at least arranges to meet up with him at the Barrel House pub, known then as the Richmond Public House. Darren works there as a chef. That information was corroborated by her sister. You see, after the phone call to Darren was made, Claire rang her for a general catch-up and told her that she was planning on meeting up with him later that night. At around 6:30 PM, Claire leaves Seamus O'Donnell and spends about 2 hours in Bristol City Centre doing some shopping. Following this, she heads to the Drawbridge Public House pub, stays there drinking until 9:30 PM, and then heads towards Seamus O'Donnell. And so, that was the last confirmed sighting of Claire Holland. She isn't captured on CCTV again. Surprisingly, not even leaving the pub. However, staff say she stayed until closing, roughly 11:30 PM. We can't trace Claire's footsteps after leaving the pub, but we do know that she was planning to make the rough 30-minute walk across the city centre to Darren Osment. However, there was an issue. When Darren was questioned by police, because after all, he may have been the last person to see her, he said that she never arrived. I haven't got a clue where she is. I was at work all night. She never turned up. When I finished work, I went home. Darren's version of events were backed up by alibis. So the police were left scratching their heads. There was no camera footage to try and help trace Claire's movements leaving the pub, and the person who she was supposed to go and meet said he didn't see her that night. Claire's family did all they could, campaigning-wise, over the first few weeks and months of her disappearance. But as the years went by, their efforts understandably quietened down. There were whispers around the city that something nefarious had happened to her, but whispers was all it was. There was no evidence to suggest Claire had been kidnapped, murdered, or both. Although many years passed, police continued to keep small tabs on the case, keeping up to date with Claire's personal data, for example, bank accounts and social media, to see if there was any activity that could help locate her. But there never was. And that was the missing persons investigation into Claire Holland. The harsh, sad reality was that she was more than likely never going to return, and her family would never find out what happened to her. However, that was all due to change in 2019.
Please.
It's not an emergency. I just wrote to your colleague. I've handed myself in.
Okay.
And I've tried to do it already today.
Handing yourself for what?
It's not a good look for me.
What do you mean it's not a good look for you?
It's not a good look for me. It's basically, it's something that was, it's murder, mate.
Pardon?
It's murder.
It's murder? So you've committed a murder?
I haven't, personally, but I know, sort of.
So you've committed a murder?
I haven't, but, sort of.
Well, what do you mean, sort of?
Well, I didn't do it.
Okay, so why are you handing yourself in if you didn't do it?
Because it was my f***ing ex.
What, it was your ex that committed the murder?
No. But I tried to hide myself into Exeter police station earlier on.
Yeah.
And the place was it was banged up, it was shut, but they said the officers were on patrol. I knocked on the door. I tried. I've had enough of it all now. I just want the monkey off my back.
Right, so how are you linked to the murder if it wasn't you?
They said it was my ex.
Yeah, what was your ex? You murdered your ex?
Sort of.
What's your ex called?
Oh, God. Claire Holland.
Claire Holland?
Yeah.
Okay, and what happened to Claire?
Well, I don't know exactly. I wasn't there.
Okay, so what is it that you're needing to hand yourself in for?
I have tried. Don't tell me I haven't tried.
I'm trying too, but there's no... If you can't give me any details, then we have no reason to speak to you in connection to it.
I've had enough now. Look, I'm admitting to it.
All right, well, I'm...
Just put down that I did it.
Darren? Darren?
I just want to be face, mate.
What's the matter, fella? Why have you called?
Did they not tell you?
No, not massively.
Go on. Back,
Surprise me.
surprise you, back along 5, 6, 7 years ago, I don't even know when it was now.
Yeah.
My missus had my son taken off of us
Right.
for social services.
Yeah.
So I did the wrong thing, really, but I'm admitting to it now.
What's your partner's name? What's her name?
Claire Holland.
Claire Holland. Okay, and do you know her date of birth?
No.
No. And when was that roughly?
About 7 years ago, but
7 years ago. Where was it?
in Bristol.
In Bristol. Okay.
I didn't do it.
You didn't do it.
I didn't do it.
Okay.
I had it arranged.
Yeah.
And I won't say any more than that.
Okay.
Right. What's your first name? Daniel, is it?
Darren.
Darren.
Osment.
Darren, just relax a minute, mate.
I've just had it up to my eyeballs, bro. I've had enough of ducking and diving and looking over my shoulder and all the rest of it. I've had enough. I just want to get it. Whatever's done's done. It's all in it. Whatever's done's done, and I can't turn back the clock. Just want to get it dealt with, innit?
You haven't told us anything.
You told us you
said
you
something
can't
over the
say,
phone,
and something happened about 7 years ago, but you haven't said anything
but you
else.
haven't said what.
I had her killed.
Right, okay. How?
I gave some money to someone and they had it done.
Right, okay.
But I can't say any name, obviously no names or numbers or anything like that.
Numbers. The time is 04:26. I'm arresting you on suspicion of murder. Okay, you don't have to say anything that may harm you to mention, don't mention when questioned. Something to you later on in court, and then if you do say maybe good evidence. Do you understand?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay. I am going to put you in handcuffs, okay?
Yeah.
Okay, just bring your hands back to back for me. That's it, thank you very much. That's it.
Double lock.
Yeah, please stand nice and still for us. Thank you very much.
That's a then 39-year-old drunken Darren Osment being arrested after he admitted to murdering his ex-girlfriend, Claire Holland. He blamed her for putting their child into care. Darren was held in police custody for 2 days following his arrest and was interviewed. When police asked him, for example, why he committed the murder, he said he didn't and said he was unsure why he even called them in the first place. It was just ramblings of a drunken man. Police had no evidence to connect him to the case, and so Darren was released under investigation. That hadn't been the first time Darren admitted to being involved in Claire's disappearance, though. It was just the first time he told police. You see, Darren had confessed on at least 3 different occasions up until that point. First, he told a woman who he was in a relationship with at the time that it would be easy to kill her and get rid of her body, just like he had done to an ex of his. Darren had also told a man who he was at a pub drinking with that he paid someone £500 to have the mother of his child executed. The final confession came at some point during 2014. Here he told a co-worker that he had thrown Claire's body in the water off the Avonmouth docks after strangling her. When the fellow employee asked why, he responded, quote, "No stupid woman is going to keep me away from my boy." Police upgraded the incident from a missing persons case to a murder investigation when Darren was released from custody in 2019. They needed to get to the bottom of his claims. If this was just the ramblings of a drunken man, then surely after a thorough police investigation with him as the main suspect, nothing would connect him to the case. Well, believe it or not, ladies and gentlemen, that's exactly what happened. Police had nothing after 17 months. But detectives didn't want to drop the case. They had that gut feeling. The feeling that Darren was in fact telling the truth on that summer's evening. Out of options, they decided to deploy an undercover officer, Paddy O'Hara. It was going to be his job to befriend Darren in the hopes that maybe after gaining his trust, he'd start to spill the beans. It was a shot in the dark, but the police didn't have anything to lose. It's December 2020, and the coronavirus pandemic has forced many people out of work. Darren Osment has no job. One day he nips down to a local shop, and out of nowhere, undercover officer Paddy O'Hara introduces himself. He makes out as if he's just moved to the area and is looking to get to know people. It's quickly established that he lives 300 yards away from Darren's home. As the pair conversate, the topic of work is brought up. Darren asks Paddy if he knows of any small cash-in-hand work. Luckily for Darren, he does. Paddy pulls him to one side, explains that he runs a reasonably sized counterfeit clothing operation and was looking for someone to help organise boxes of clothes at a lockup. Darren was up for the task. Over the next few months, their work relationship turned into a close friendship. The pair would frequently watch football together at Paddy's flat. They would go for walks, they'd go out in Bristol City Centre nightclubbing, and sometimes they would even play pool for 10 hours at a time, amongst other bonding activities. Remember though, Paddy was there for one reason, and one reason only: to get Darren Osment to confess. To do that, he had to make out that not only was he a hardened criminal, but also responsible for a similar crime. Throughout their time together, various fake crimes took place. For example, they would go on gun runs up and down the UK, as well as go on fake drug runs. The guns and drugs were real, but undercover officers were running the show. Darren had also acted as a lookout while Paddy stole a van planted by police. But what really sealed the deal was a fake news article that Paddy presented to Darren. It was about a murder that happened in Dublin in the 80s. Paddy implied he was involved. Darren brought the story.
I got back from work and there was 3 empty bottles of wine in the kitchen, and I went upstairs. Obviously, she woke up whilst I came in, trying to make out she was doing something. So she picked up and was starting to try and come down the stairs towards me. Where the with the baby? And she said, I'm making it in his milk. So I said, you don't need to take him down the stairs to do that. Oh no, you can't take my... Listen to me now, right? Mate, and it was just like, I don't know, mate, it's fucking horrible to say, but it was like rugby. And if someone's got the ball and they're doing that, I just get my arm and I go in between here. You know, and it was the same thing, I just went like that. Was that, no chance, right, that's mine, right? Same rugby, disappear, get out of my face. And she wouldn't, so I just get the room, shut the door, I told her to off, go make the milk and bring it back up here. And she said she downstairs, whatever happens. She said, who drinks 3 bottles of wine?
Mate, I did what I've done what I've done, and I've done what I did what I did, done what I've done, whatever, innit? But, you know, it's not something I'm bang on about. Mate, even here, I'd be like that before I even speak a word. Who's a
I mean, I sort of pretty much assumed that you sort of knew. So I knew that the geezer who ran the pub was going out to meet his missus that night. And then obviously I've got fucking aprons and bits and pieces to wear to do them sorts of jobs. It's all done, it was done and dusted. All the fucking work clothes burnt outside, fucking everything's gone.
Darren Osment would admit on 16 different occasions that he in some way had murdered Claire Holland back in 2012. Each confession painted a bigger picture of the events that had taken place. So what was the motive? Well, to sum up, the social services were happy to move their son on from a foster family to custody of Claire's aunt who lived outside of Bristol. Both were aware that the move was happening, but it came out of nowhere. So quick in fact that they hadn't had the chance to say their goodbyes before he left. Darren was left furious. He wrongly blamed Claire for putting their son into care in the first place, but the fact that he didn't get to say his goodbyes really tipped him over the edge. Claire made it to the pub on the night in question. It's believed that when she arrived, she got into an argument with Darren, which ultimately led to her being strangled to death. Darren then chopped her body up and threw her remains in the water by the Avonmouth dock.
No, I put that into someone else's knife box a long time. Yeah, man. I'm just trying to in. Honestly, like I said, as far as I'm concerned, I don't think, and you know, Oh. Yeah. Yeah, I know. Probably not. First time I hope it's not. I need to make sure I don't. Because, you know what I mean? Put it this way, life skills. The time it happened, there was a massive load of blood. And the people come rushing down like that, but it's really comes back to fucking and mate, I think it's fucking you're not gonna get fucking clean. It's all fucking weight, it's all value, it's all as far as I don't see it's not gonna come close up. It shouldn't, I don't know. It shouldn't, I don't know. Whatever. As far as I'm concerned, I don't know. I was at work. I finished work, I went home. I've got alibi all the way. I don't know, unless they I don't know, basic miracle. I don't understand how there's going to ever be. They shouldn't ever have to question me again.
That's believed to be one of the last confessions made by Darren Osment. He and undercover cop Paddy were on a fake gun run to North Wales. This confession was the strongest out of the lot, and police felt that even if they didn't have any other evidence to go off, his confessions alone would be enough to charge him. They were right, and by charging him, they could finally go and search the pub, the alleged murder site of Claire Holland.
So this morning we rearrested a man on suspicion of the murder of Claire Holland 10 years ago, and now we're beginning specialist searching of the pub behind me. That searching we anticipate is going to last a few days.
So your press release referred to new information that sparked the search. Could you give us any indication of what that might be, what that information might be?
Yeah, so it is specific intelligence. I don't know that detail myself, but as you've seen, we've got forensic officers and specialist search officers that have begun arriving this afternoon, and it's difficult to tell exactly how long the search is going to take, but I think probably certainly today, tomorrow, maybe to the end of the week.
You said rearrest. This is the same man that was arrested in 2019.
Yeah, this is a person that we've already interviewed in connection with Claire's disappearance. That's back in custody again this morning.
Is there anything you'd like to add?
I suppose the thing I'd like to add is just to reassure people that live and work in Clifton. It must be alarming to see a large number of police officers working here, but this is a case that's 10 years old now, and I've got neighbourhood officers here, so if you're worried about anything at all, please just come up and speak to a member of my team.
In August of 2022, Darren Osment was charged with the murder of Claire Holland. He was due to go on trial in the autumn of the following year. Darren would admit to the jury that he did make the admissions, but repeated his original claims that he rambled a lot while drunk. For the want of a better explanation, I'm a drunken idiot. Why would you confess to involvement in either Claire Holland's killing or the disposal of her body unless you had done it? No idea. Good question. Drinking too much, trying to big myself up, make myself out to be something I'm not. The combination of the three. Again, I haven't got a proper explanation. Before the trial started, Darren's defence team argued that a lot of the confessions had been made while he was under the influence of alcohol, and therefore they shouldn't be able to be used on trial. Paddy had even confirmed that to be the case, but the judge allowed the evidence to be submitted anyway. In the end, though, the jury found Darren guilty of murder. This more than likely came as the result of not only the 16 confessions that he made, but the other 1,200 hours worth of footage which captured him kicking and stamping a dog, being verbally aggressive to his mother, nearly attacking a student on a night out, and telling Paddy that he wanted to murder a social care worker in front of her children. The jury saw what type of man Darren Osment really was, one that would kill if given the opportunity. The judge sentenced him to life with the minimum term of 20 years.
Darren Osment, for the moment you can remain seated. I am to sentence you today for the murder of Claire Holland. For this grave offence, there is only one sentence prescribed by law, and that is imprisonment for life. That is the sentence that I shall impose upon you in due course. However, I'm required to determine the minimum period you should serve in prison before you are eligible to be considered for release on parole. It's most important that you and everyone concerned with this case should understand what in fact this means. The minimum term is not a fixed term after which you will be automatically released, but the minimum time that you will spend in custody before your case can be considered by the parole board, and it will be for the parole board to say at that time whether or not you will be released. Claire Holland was aged 32 years at the time of her death in June 2012. It is clear from the deeply moving impact statements that I have heard and read that she was a warm and vivacious person who was deeply loved. She had experienced difficulty in her early life, but by 2012 was, in the words of her mother, starting a new chapter in her life. She had a new flat, had re-engaged with her family, and was engaged on a programme to stop drinking. She was rightly proud of herself and the efforts that she was making. She had high hopes that she would in time be able to have her children to live with her, children whose contact visits she never missed, no matter how difficult her life was at times. She was happy and optimistic about the future. You must face the consequences of your actions in the punishment that I impose upon you today. I recognise that such punishment cannot bring her back, and those who love and cherish her must live forever with her loss. For 11 long years, no one except you knew what had happened to Claire. She went missing on the night of the 6th of June 2012, never contacting her family or her children again. There was an extensive police missing persons investigation which failed to find her. You were spoken to in the course of that investigation. You could and should have told the police what had happened. You could and should have admitted that you killed Claire. You did not. You left her family with the agony of not knowing where she was or what had happened. As you sought to move on with your life, you left her family in limbo, caring for her youngest child and trying to give him and her other children answers they did not have. Yet it is clear that you could not live with the burden of what you had done. I accept the prosecution case, that you were haunted by it, and seeking to relieve the burden of what you did, you have made confessions over the years to 6 people in all. You were both drinking. But rather than care for and help Claire look after him, rather than addressing your own issues with alcohol and helping her to address hers, you were critical of and violent to her. The police were called after, I find, you threw Claire down the stairs shortly after your son's birth. She was to tell social workers she was frightened of you. I accept her account given to them that you had strangled her in the past and that she feared you may kill her. This fits not just with your attitude to Claire, but with the evidence of your character that I heard during the trial. You are, in the words of your mother who gave evidence, a vile drunk. She was vulnerable. It was late at night and she had been drinking. When you confessed to others that you killed Claire, you said to some that you strangled her, and to others that you paid for someone else to kill her. I am sure that you killed her yourself. You were living hand to mouth in a hostel and did not have the means to pay someone else to do it. By so saying, you were seeking only to distance yourself from the horror of what you had done by inserting another mystery person into the picture. For Claire's family's sake, and for the sake of your son, I urge you for once to stand up to what you have done in the very near future and to disclose what you did and where her body might be found, so that she may be laid to rest. Taking into account all the aggravating and mitigating factors as exist, in my judgment, the minimum term I impose is one of 20 years imprisonment. Stand up. Darren Osment, for the murder of Claire Holland, I sentence you to life imprisonment. You will serve a minimum term of 20 years, less the 503 days you have served on remand. Thereafter, it will be for the parole board to decide when, if ever, you should be released. If you are ever released, you will remain on licence for the rest of your life. Take him down.
And so that's the decade-long missing person turned murder case of Claire Holland. It's hard to say what the most shocking part of this case is, but for me it's the fact that if Darren had kept this information to himself, if he had stayed sober throughout the years, then Claire would still be classed as a missing person. He was literally in the clear, but I guess in the end he had to clear his conscience. And at least now the family can have some closure. I say some because Darren still refuses to say where he disposed of Claire's body. He of course claims that he's innocent, so he's not going to tell them. If he doesn't tell them though, then he'll never be released from prison due to Helen's law. Simply put, if the parole board believes that a perpetrator knows where the body of their victim is but refuses to let anyone know, they can be denied release from prison.